to also make the food more affordable to everyone. Yeah.
Okay, everyone, time's up. Please put your laptop under the table. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's debate. My name is Arina, and I have the honor to be the chairperson for this session. Today, we will be debating under the motion, this House will make the use of genetically modified crops mandatory to address global hunger. And this debate will follow the Asian parliamentary format, and we have two teams over here, the government team, which will support the motion, and the opposition team, which will oppose the motion. For representing the government team, we have Hison, Irshad, and Shinda, and for representing the opposition team, we have Raja Fatwa, Farel, and Naura. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes to represent their case, and also please note to every speaker that please do look at the timekeeper over there to see how much time you have used. Now, without any further rule, let me invite the first speaker of the government to begin the debate. Please welcome Hison.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable judges and chairperson, respected opposition, and ladies and gentlemen who are watching in the YouTube videos. So I am Son Fatih Javani as the speaker one of the government team and the fourth team in here. Firstly, I wanted to introduce my team in first, our team first. So in here, we have Irshad Akbar as the second speaker, and he will be also there for the reply speech after we have been done. So in here, we have also Sinda as the third speaker. In here, we have a debate. We wanted to talk about this motion, this mandate, as the chairperson have been told before. So nowadays, we are facing real and urgent problem, which is called hunger. And according to UN Food and Agriculture Organization, around 635 million people didn't get enough food in 2022. And it's expected that world population will be grow until 9.7 billion people. And it means we need to grow more food. But we have a lot of problem, right? Like we are running out of water, we are running out of land and time. That's why we believe that genetically modified crops is an ultimate solution to solve these problems. It can grow more food in sober condition. It can help farmers to protect nature, and it can help farmers to lower the production costs. But before I deliver to you the arguments which strengthen our statement, I want to limit this debate. Hunger, which is we mentioned in here, is about the hunger which appear in the developing and lower income countries. And we wanted to focus more on the solution that directly solve hunger, not about the broader system farmers or the luxurious innovation. That's our definition of hunger, okay? And our first argument is GM crops help us to grow more food. Hunger often happens simply because there isn't enough food in this world, especially when drought, when crop disease and pests destroy harvest. GM crops are designed to fix that. Each country can use it to modify their plants. And example, for instance, in India, pest-resistant GM cotton led to 24% yield increase and 50% higher farmer profits. This means we can grow more food even in hard conditions, and it helps especially small farmers. And second argument is crops are better, are good for environment. Some say GM crops is bad for environment, but the evidence shows the opposite condition. For example, BT crops, which make their own pest-repelling protein, help farmers up to 50% less pesticide. It means lower chemicals in the soils and water, and it can help farmers also to become healthier because they don't expose to the chemicals more. So GM crops not only feed people, but they also protect the environment. And our third argument is GM crops make food more affordable. Hunger is also about money. And there are a lot of people who can afford for the expensive food. That's why GM crops can fix that by reducing farmer costs and increasing supply. The National Academy of Science found that GM crops farmers earn 20% more income on average because they lost fewer crops and needed fewer inputs. Cheaper production means cheaper foods. And who's the person in this world who don't want cheaper food, right? So those are our arguments which strengthen our statement that GM crops is an ultimate solution for solving hunger problems. Waalaikumsalam. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Husan, for delivering your arguments. Now, I would like to invite the first speaker of the opposition team to deliver their arguments. Raja Fatwa, time is yours.
I'll start with 3, 2, 1. So, honorable adjudicators and chairperson, respectable members of the House, also the viewers, good morning. I am Raja Fatwa Siregar as the first speaker of the opposition team, and also will be the reply speech. And there is Fari Farel Hairin as the second speaker of our team, and Naura Faiza Adisti as the third speaker that will summarize our arguments later. So we strongly oppose the idea of proposing GM crops as the solution for global world hunger as a sustainable solution. We all agree that global hunger is a complex issue, right? But we believe mandating GM crops wouldn't solve any of those underlying problems because GM crops bring economic risks and environmental, also ethical risks that could worsen the problem. First, let's address the claim that GM crops will help to solve world hunger. The issue of world hunger isn't just about availability and affordability, but it's also about access. Poverty, for infrastructure, also inequality is deeply rooted, and it is the main factors of global hunger. Moreover, GM crops often promote monoculture farming, where only one crop grown in one large field, where it can lead to it causes less and lost biodiversity, which next led to pests and diseases. So a study published by University of Virginia reveals that over 100 million acres of US farmland are overrun by herbicide-resistant superweeds. This is as a direct result of GM monoculture farming. Also, Food and Agriculture Organization (FAO) reveals that 33% of global soils are already degraded, and this number is only likely to increase if we apply the practice of GM crops. So while GM crops might increase yields temporarily, they are not a sustainable solution for global hunger. Second, GM crops force farmers to rely on expensive inputs from large biotech corporations. Many GM crops are patented, so farmers can use their seeds again after one harvest to the next year. GM seeds, they must purchase new GM seeds and often specific chemicals every year from the same company. And GM crops, it lead to increased financial burden, especially on the small scale farmers. Over the past 25 years, seed prices for GM crops has increased over 700% from the ETC group data. And today, just two companies control over 40% of the global seeds market. Especially, this concentration of power is dangerous as it forces small farmers, especially those in developing countries, into debt cycles that they can escape. These farmers, who are already vulnerable, will lose control over their own agricultural practices. This is not just an economic issue, it's a matter of food sovereignty. How can we address world hunger if we are forcing farmers to depend on large corporations to the very seeds of their own? Finally, mandating GM crops will violate consumer rights and harm local ecosystem. People have right to choose whether they want to use GM or not, whether it is organic, traditional, or GM. Study shows that 46% of American consumers avoid GM food, and 42% actively seek out products with non-GMO labels. Hartman Group 2018. GM crops can spread through local plants through pollen, leading to creation of superweeds that are resistant to herbicides. These superweeds can spread rapidly, creating more problems to farmers who are already struggling. The loss of biodiversity and negative impact on local ecosystem would have long-term consequences that we can't give. Also, in conclusion, mandating GM crops will not solve world hunger. Instead, it will create economic burdens. Okay. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Raja Fatwa, for your arguments. Now let's invite the second speaker of the government to deliver their arguments and also rebutting some of the opposition arguments. Let's invite Irfan.
Okay, so my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Irsyad Akbar as the second speaker from the government team. So for the motion, I want to reinstate that this house that will make the use of genetically modified crop mandatory to address global world hunger. So for the opposition team, they have said that people need to have the rights to choose either from GM crops than organic. Even though in reality, when you are starving, we have experienced world hunger, you cannot choose, you have no money to choose. So if you are experiencing some of the hunger, you will have to get the cheapest one. Even when you want to compare the organic one and the organic one, of course you would choose the cheaper one, the GM crops. So I just wanted to state that this is for addressing global world hunger, not for everyday use of it. And the second thing is that GM crops can harm the environment and reduce biodiversity. So in actuality, GM crops actually help protect the environment by reducing pesticide use. A 2014 meta-analysis in PLOS ONE found a 37 reduction in pesticide use thanks to GM crops. By producing more foods on less land, GM crops help revert the deforestation and protect natural habitats. For example, BT cotton and BT maize cotton built in pest resistant, meaning less chemical spraying. So when you don't need to, when you genetically modify the crops to be to be immune for the pest, you don't need to use the herbicide. Even if you need to use the herbicide, you if the volume does increase, but in actuality, the effect is actually reduced. So, for example, that in a 2014 research that seed crop that they may have need to certain herbicides, but that herbicide, even though it's increasing volume, they have reduced in effect the effect in the land and even impacting that the land even restoring itself. And the third one that I want to talk about is GM seeds are expensive and controlled by big corporations. So while some patented seeds are sold by private companies, many GM crops are developed by public institutions and non-profits, especially in the global south. For example, WMA or Water Efficient Maize for Africa provided drought-resistant GM maize royalty-free to smallholder farmers. So as you all know, in Africa, they experience drought all the time. They have less water, and in the solution is they make a crop and they genetically modify it so they have a drought resistant, and they does not sell it. They gave it to small farmers, and the increased yield and lower input costs often outweigh the initial seed cost, resulting in a higher profit for farmers. For farm and for the data for in PG Economics 2020, average farm profit increased to $103 per hectare, and this data is collected in a developing country, not an advanced country. And the fourth one is GM crops promote monoculture and destroy traditional farming. So the issue of monoculture is a choice in agricultural practice, not caused by GM crops themselves. If you want to plant seeds, just one land for carrot, one land for potato, it's based on your the farmer's opinion. It does not came from the GM crop itself. You can just plant whatever you want there. In fact, GM technology can strengthen local crops and traditional varieties by making them more resilient, allowing farmers to preserve their culture while improving productivity. And many GM crops in Asia and Africa are focused on local crops like cassava, rice, and cowpea, not just corn or soy and carrots and whatnot. And that will conclude my speech here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chef, for your arguments. And now I would like to invite the second speaker from the opposition to strengthen their arguments and also rebut the government's argument. Please welcome Sari Farah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable Adjudicator, Chairperson, members of the House, I am the second speaker of the opposition team. My name is Fahri Falakairin. My job today is to respond directly to the government arguments and show you why the solution to hunger, mandatory GM crops is flawed. Let me address the key points raised by the government team and demonstrate why they do not hold up under scrutiny. So firstly, the government argues that GM crops make food cheaper. They claim that by increasing yields and reducing input costs, GM crops make food affordable. However, the reality is that GM crops farming raises the production cost for farmers, especially in developing countries. While yes, for the farmers in Western nations, they can afford these GM crops and they develop them in their own field. The farmers from developing countries cannot because they have less money. While it's true that GM crops may be cheaper at the retail level in Western nations, the cost of purchasing seeds and fertilizers remains high for farmers. So, GM crops depend heavily on expensive inputs, which many small farmers simply cannot afford. How can GM crops solve hunger if the very people who grow food cannot afford the tools to produce it? The second one is that the government claims that GM crops are a sustainable solution to hunger, especially because they reduce pesticide use. Yes, they reduce pesticide use, which therefore helps the environment. However, that is in the short term. If the GM crops somehow break containment of the farming field and spread into the local ecosystem, they will grow there slowly and steadily, dominating the chain food and pushing the population of the wild crops into a lower level and maybe even driving them into extinction. Yes.
So you say about the pollen flows, right? So
Wait, can you repeat that again?
pollen flow.
Pollen.
Pollen flow.
Why what?
Pollen flow.
Yeah, well, yes, pollen
Yeah.
flow.
So the probability to plants
Yeah.
can do that to that happen is very low because it means similarity between the gen of the plants, right? So that can be reduced also because of if the farmers
The farmers do
the
what?
farmers make it to only that
Yeah.
plant in the land, it won't be flowering also.
How?
So why does not very does can be solved if the government and the farmers do it correctly, and the problem is also pretty low. Okay?
The probability is very low, but it still can happen. In reality, 100 million acres of in US already have super weeds in them. And also, how do farmers control the pollen force? It's like very tiny in the air that spreads everywhere else. The farmers cannot just telekinetically delete everything, right? They cannot control the pollen force easily. Well, yes, they can to some extent. In the end, they cannot control everything. So the GM crop still spreads around the local ecosystem. And also, pollen flowers is not the only way GM crops can reproduce. They can reproduce asexually. Like, for example, carrot can spread its roots outside of the farming field and into the local ecosystem. The roots is underground. The farmers cannot see them. They cannot cut the root off. It's hard. So they can reproduce asexually, spread into the local ecosystem, and yeah, dominating the ecosystem and blah blah blah, like I said before. And we continue on. In order to control these resistance weeds that have spread around the ecosystem, it is hard. Why? Because they are immune to herbicide. Because of their increased resistance, it is hard to control them. So if they go out of the containment, it is doomed. The third one is the government also points to GM crops have a high quality over the organic food, the normal one. However, they do not address the root causes of malnutrition, which are linked to poverty. If you cannot buy the food, you cannot eat it. So what is the point of increasing the quality of the food if the people cannot afford it? Yes, it may be lower the cost a bit, but it's a bit, not much. And also, these crops are not widely available yet. It's and in many regions, people do not trust GM food. Moreover, GM crops are not the only way to improve nutrition. Better public health infrastructure, education, and local food system are more effective in reducing malnutrition. GM crops are not a magic bullet. They are just one small part of a much larger problem. That's my argument, my counter argument. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Hisam, for your arguments. And now I would like to invite the third speaker of the government to deliver their arguments, strengthen it, and rebut, and also conclude the debate. Please welcome Tina.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Dear honorable adjudicators, organizers, and all of the speakers here, and also the viewers. So today I'm the third speaker of the government side who underline the effect or the function of the GM crops. So GM crops present a viable and effective solution to address global hunger. By mandating their use, government can significantly enhance food availability, improve nutritional content, reduce environmental impact, and lower food costs, especially in regions suffering from food and the developing countries. A major benefit of GM crops is their ability to combat malnutrition by enhancing the nutrition value of staple foods. For example, it means has been shown to reduce harmful toxins while increasing essential vitamins and minerals. The World Health Organization support this claim, stating that beneficial modified crops can be fortified with vital micronutrients, helping to fight nutrient deficiencies, particularly in developing countries. In terms of sustainability, GM crops contribute to increased agricultural efficiency. They are engineered for pest resistance and higher yields, which reduces the need for harmful pesticides up than 50% and converses agricultural land. This improvement help cut greenhouse gas emissions, make production more environmentally friendly. Economically, side of GM crops can lower food prices by reducing farming costs and increasing supply. The organic food that mentioned by the opposition team, which avoid GM methods, are often 68% more expensive, while patent GM seeds can be costly. Studies show that the overall economic benefits, including higher yields and reduced pesticide use, often outweigh the seed expenses, especially for large-scale production. Although concerns exist regarding environmental risk and seed affordability for small farmers, these issues can be managed through responsibility practice like crop rotation and regulatory oversight. In conclusion, the strategic use of GM crops offers a powerful science-based path to solving hunger. Rebuttal for GM crops have not solved hunger yet, so they don't work. Hunger is complex and political, but that doesn't mean GM crops are ineffective. GM crop is a best change to fight and solve the hunger. And the second rebuttal for natural farming is better than the environment. Natural, natural doesn't always mean sustainable. Organic farming often uses more land and water to produce the same amount of food. GM crops, by increasing yields per hectare, preserve forests, grassland, and carbon sinks. Reply to speaker 2 about the carrots and it will be dominate others. It is the totally farmers' fault. This GM crops educate the farmers and the farmers will do it because the carrot can be planted cannot be planted like besides the others, and they should be planted very far away. By improving nutrition, boosting efficiency, and lowering food prices, mandatory GM crops adoption could play a crucial role in ending global food insecurity. That's all from me, third speaker. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Shinda, for your arguments. And now I would like to invite the third speaker of the opposition to deliver their arguments, rebuttal, and strengthen their arguments. Nora Faiza, time is yours.
I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Honorable adjudicators and all the organizer and esteemed members of the House, I'm the third speaker of the opposition team, and in this speech, I will summarize our argument and firmly restate why we oppose this motion and why the government has failed to prove that mandatory GM crops are the right solution to address global hunger. From the beginning, we have presented 3 key arguments that showing that GM crops will not solve global hunger crisis and could make it worse. First, in our opening statement, Speaker 1 explained that GM crops, while they may increase yields in short term, will not solve global hunger. Hunger is not caused by a lack of food, but by people's inability to afford it. I repeat again, hunger is not caused by a lack of food, but by people's inability to afford it. Forcing farmers to plant GM crops, which require expensive seeds and farmers, would increase their dependence on large corporations and worsen inequality. Additionally, GM monoculture are more vulnerable to pests and diseases, which could undermine food security. We've shown that the rise of herbicide resistance, superweeds, and soil degradation are a serious problem linked to GM crops, making it fragile and unsustainable system. Next, Speaker reviewed the government's claim that GM crops will make food cheaper. While the government argues that GM crops reduce production costs, we pointed out that costs for seeds and chemicals required for GM farming are far from cheap. As the ETC group report, the price of GM seeds has increased by 700% in the past 25 years. This high cost burden farmers, especially in poor countries, and make food more expensive rather than cheaper. This shows that GM crops are not an affordable solution for small-scale farmers who are already struggling with rising debts. The government has failed to address these issues and has overlooked the real cost of production. Unsustainability, the government claims that GM crops reduce pesticide use and protect the environment. However, GM crops often lead to increased pesticide use as super weeds become resistant to herbicides. As we pointed out, 100 million acres of land in the US are already infested with resistant seeds, which force farmers to use stronger chemicals. Moreover, while the government mentioned carbon dioxide reduction, the long-term environmental already of GM farming, such as soil degradation, damage to ecosystem, have not been properly addressed. So, while the government just focused on short-term benefits, they ignore the long-term environmental risk GM crops. Finally, the government argued that GM crops can improve nutrition, citing biofortified crops like golden rice. However, the issue of malnutrition is not just about adding nutrition to food, it's a deeper problem of poverty and unequal food distribution. Biofortified GM crops might help in some cases, but they don't solve the root causes of malnutrition. Additionally, many consumers prefer non-GMO food, and forcing them to eat GM food is against their right to choose what they eat. As we mentioned earlier, nearly half of American consumers avoid GM food, and many countries, especially particularly in developing world, are skeptical of GM products due to health and environmental concerns. In conclusion, the government's proposal to mandate GM crops as a solution global hunger is flawed and short-sighted. GM crops increase farmers' dependence on expensive input, hurt the environment, and undermine consumer choices. We are the opposition team believes that better solution lies in supporting diverse and sustainable agricultural practices that address the root causes of hunger and malnutrition, not by forcing GM crops into the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora, for your arguments. And now let's proceed to the reply speech from the government team. Irshad, the time is yours. For your opposition first, I'm sorry. Now let's proceed to the reply speech from the opposition team. Raja Fatwa, time is yours.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable adjudicators, ladies and gentlemen. So I am in the reply speech, and I'd like to offer personal reflection why the opposition team presented the stronger case in today's debate. The government team mentioned that they want to provide availability food for all. Well, when we talk about hunger, our main focus in African countries, and in African countries, most of them can afford yet to apply the technologies to produce GM food, while the one of the most one of the most developed countries in Africa, South Africa, is that it's not yet in the stage where they can apply what you call super weed management to tackle every weaknesses of the GM crops. But the problem is if you can the problem is when if you can you cannot do that super weed management, then there is no use for the for the GM crops. Like there are pests, disease, and pollen spread through the like that, but in reality, that you see, it can be solved by super weed management. In fact, in reality, most of African countries cannot or is not yet in the stage of they can apply super weed management. So for that's all from me. The reply speech of the opposition team. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Raja Fatwa. And now I would like to invite Irshad as the reply speech from the government. Irshad, time is yours.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Hello, so my name is Mafia Akbar as the reply speech for the government team. So today I will reflect the argument that I presented and the rebuttal from our team. So for the first one, the argument is the GM crops increase crop yields to feed a growing population. So in point is the GM crops are engineered to produce higher yields per hectare, making them ideal for feeding the global population. And the second argument for us is that GM crops are more resilient to climate change and environmental stress. So GM crops are designed to survive harsh conditions like drought, flood, poor soil, and extreme weather conditions that are worsening due to climate change. And the third one is that GM crops reduce the cost of food production and make food more affordable. And for our rebuttal is that we have reinstated that our cause is to address global hunger. But from the opposition team, they kept using the data from America, the country who is not affected by world hunger, and they have a lot of inconsistency. Like they kept using data from Africa where the farmers are having a lot of fault, but they also use the data from America where they use that people choose the organic food rather than GM crops, while our target is to address world hunger, not address consumers who want to eat for everyday food. And they kept saying about the hunger is about distribution, it's not production. It's always not. It's always about the farmers. And we will just restate that our goal is to use GM crops. So the fault in here is not GM crop itself. It is from the farmers. So for the farmers, even though they are in Africa, we have a lot of the advanced countries that can educate them about the right thing to do. And like before, we have the policy that they are spreading. It is also because of the farmers. So a lot of the arguments from the opposition team is basically faulting the farmers, not the GM crop itself. So the last thing, for the last reason for the government to win is we have addressed a lot of argument that is according to the reality, and the opposition team kept faulting the farmers and not the GM crop itself. And that's why the government team should win, as the GM crop should be mandatory to address global world hunger. That's from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Irshad, and also thank you to all debaters for their compelling arguments and insightful thoughts. And that concludes our motion. This House would make the use of genetically modified crops mandatory to address global hunger. And now let's give applause to all of us. I am Harina as your chairperson today. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you very much, guys.